Hello and welcome to Ascension Day, a Warhammer 40,000 Genestealer Cult podcast. I have with me Primus Elias. Elias, how are you doing?
Hi, I am exhausted after work, but getting a little bit into the cult again after having a little break from it.
I have also had a break. That's mainly why I haven't been putting out episode recently. I after playing the same list for like a year and a half, you get a little burnt out. More news at 10. So I where what have you been playing recently?
So, first of all, I was like, okay, I might play some Necrons.
Hmm.
Then my Necrons got stolen, so that was fun,
Oh yeah, I
lovely.
remember you telling me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe some people have heard about. We had a break-in, like one guy lost 5 armies and 30 years of work,
Hmm.
and so on. They broke into our gaming locale. But
Yeah, it
yeah,
was one of
so
the
I'll
bigger stores, right? Or bigger places that you guys all played.
No, we literally have a gaming club in a
Hmm.
it's an old store that we have like turned into a gaming club
Hmm.
because the like local game store over here has like is very small, so it doesn't really have any tables.
Hmm.
So over here, like there's like 4 or 5 clubs in Gothenburg, Sweden, and like all of them has like 4 to 5 tables,
Yeah.
maybe. So people mostly play in the clubs, and then we have like a city spanning league where people from all the clubs are like joining.
Hmm. Well, I will say, if anyone around the Gothenburg area, knows anything, you can feel free to come into the Discord channel and DM Elias or I. We're both the admins of the server. And if you guys know anything, please, reach out. Um, I'll see about maybe being able to get some pictures of the armies from you guys. So if it like pops up on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or something, then we can at least put that out to the community.
Yeah.
Because
But yeah,
that definitely
so
sucks.
so there went my playing the Necrons thing,
Hmm.
and then I was like, okay, I'll play some demons, I guess, because all the new shiny Grotsman stuff came out,
Hmm.
and turned out the demons also got stolen. so
Oh God, no.
so so a friend of mine was like, okay, you want to play Custodes? I have a Custodes army, and I was like, yeah, sure. Took them to an RTT and dropped like 9 points over 3 games. So I've been running.
Did you play Spearhead?
No solar. No shield host.
Shield Host? Nice. Yeah. Shield
Uh,
Host just seems to be all around like just strong, like strong basic Custodes.
yeah,
I, I played
like
Talons a few times and Spearhead a few or yeah, that one a few times as well.
yeah, it was like so got into the. I can probably like go through that there quickly. First off, I played against a Windrider host Eldar that did not
Mhm.
know how to play new Eldar.
Oof.
Uh, and he got like 37 points and got tabled by turn 3. Turns out having damage 2 is pretty good. Second round, I played into an Orc where he lost his Gorkanaut turn 1 to Kyriadraxus shooting it twice.
Happens.
And then the Meganobs got out and got charged by Blade Champ and died. And that happened.
Hmm.
Third game was into Renegade Raiders where I actually had to try a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Renegade
yeah,
Raiders, I imagine, was a pretty back and forth game.
yeah. But it ended like 91 to 50, 96 to 51 or something like that. So it was pretty fun. But yeah,
Nice.
so I've been mostly running around. I've also done some like TTS events on Eldar and Swarm Host because I'm one of those madmen who can actually play Swarm Host on a clock on TTS and not clock out too much. That
Nice.
happened.
Yeah.
But yeah. But now I'm like looking to go back into Claw.
Yeah, I think I built few call lists, and Claw seemed, especially if the meta still wants to be more elf dominated. Claw having the speed that they do, and all the mortals that they could dish out.
And all the flamers.
and all the
different
flamers.
bodies.
Exactly. Yep. You only get to not overwatch one thing. So, nice. Well, yeah, like I was saying, I also took a little bit of break. I have a team of local guys. We went to ATC, which is kind of like the premier team circuit here in the States. We ended up getting second at one of the ATC events, which is really cool. We beat a few of the more bigger teams. It was kind of funny because it's like all the teams around us on the podium were all like, they had their jerseys and they're all and they had like all of their matrix was just super built out and stuff like that. And then our team was like 5 dudes wearing sweats and a basic red, yellow, green matrix. And yeah, we were able to secure second with that, which is awesome. So we're looking at doing the ATC champs here in July, which is dope because we got our tickets paid for coming in second there. So that should
Are you
be
coming? Are you coming in sweats again, or are you actually getting jerseys this time?
Um, my our team captain wants to do jerseys, but we haven't decided. So there is a not 0% chance that we might just go in like our pajamas again, and
Isn't that like
attempt
the
to.
best way to win, though?
Yeah, exactly. At least I'll be comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, recently, kind of getting back into the cult, which is nice. Sometimes, having that little bit of a break, especially playing like index/host for, like I said, a year and a half, where it's like 130 models up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down.
Only
For 5.
130. I was at the 150 something.
Yeah, I'm not a. I know what my limits are, and I know that I am not a 100 neophyte player. 80 is like the max. Anything above that, my ADHD just takes over. I start losing models, and then
My
yeah.
first ever tournament with Genestealer Cult back in 9th edition, I think it was like 23 or something.
Hmm.
I brought 80 neophytes in Myriad Cult to tournament,
Ooh boy.
completely decked out with Webbers to kill the Iron Hands, to kill the speeders.
Hmm.
Where you like, because the speeders were like strength 5 or something, and if you roll above their strength, you did mortals. And
Yeah.
I got matched into Grey Knights, CK, and demons. So
Uh,
like the Webbers absolutely did nothing. And like I think like 60% of the field or something was Space Marines or something. So I was like, come on.
come on. Yeah.
There was like
I have
3 demons players at the tournament, and I played all 3 of them.
I have all these shotguns specifically for killing Marines, and you don't give me any Marines.
But yeah, I've been ever since like the last podcast I was on with you and Floof, where you two like basically convinced me to try Swarm Host. I've been playing Floof's version of Swarm Host.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's been it's definitely good. And watching, talking to him, and then watching his games, like um, there's something to be said of a opponent just not having the activations to be able to get through all of those bodies, and then by the time you do, you're so behind on primary that like the game is pretty much over.
my
um
favorite thing to do with 20 neophytes nowadays is just charge Angron because without the sustain he can't get through them.
hmm exactly, yeah, and they're usually wanting the field no pain and the like, plus, was it +2 to move or advance and charge.
Yeah,
I think very rarely that they're
because I
getting
think
the
he's like,
pain.
isn't he like 18 attacks or something? So like he's
Yeah,
just off from killing a 20 man.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
just
and then
struck.
one dropped hit or one dropped wound, and or a couple, because you should drop like at least two.
Yeah,
Then you're definitely not killing that. Maybe even through the sustained, uh, you could theoretically
with
not
the
kill it.
sustained, you're probably dead. I
You're
think.
still probably dead. but there's
Yeah,
always that chance. No, that's awesome that you've been kind of getting into host. I think host is a lot of fun. I mean,
because
we
like
enjoyed the
I
index.
because I was like on the Outlander claw, and you were always on the host, and you like kept telling me I should try host.
Yeah. Well, especially I think Claw always had like a little issue with stuff like sisters
No,
whenever
they were
they
good in Sisters.
were they I mean even with the triple castigator and triple
Yeah,
immolator.
yeah.
Oh.
Because
Yeah, I never
they so the thing was like, yeah, sure, they could pop your vehicles, but
Mhm.
they usually didn't have the volume to actually kill everything.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess if you do the -1 damage on a rock grinder or something and then like you could throw the info on the ridge runners and then all of a sudden like they're living when they really shouldn't be. Yeah, no, I could definitely see that then. Um, well, speaking about sisters, um, we had a big balanced data slate. I'm sure most of our listeners know. GSC like relatively unscathed, which
We got
is
away like bandits again.
exciting. Well, that's what happens when you have like a low play rate. I mean, look at Death Watch, right? Like absolutely zero changes to any of their meta lists, and they just won LVO, but no one's playing him. So it's kind of nice to be in that position. Um,
Except if you're Innis, where you get target banned.
yeah, well, Innocent just needs to stop talking about GSC. He could, if he just focused on winning and didn't say anything about the faction, we could have even gone through with no point changes. But yeah, it's it. He
We love you,
has,
Innis. We love you.
yeah. One day I'll tell him that when he's not playing GSC and not fucking with my faction. Um. So, overall, huge changes in the meta. Um, a lot of our predators, got reined in. Mortars, for guard got toned way down. Bridgehead, which was like I'm gonna be host, but kind of better. Um, got reined in quite a bit. I don't even think people are really gonna be playing too much Bridgehead anymore. Um, so that's been really cool to see that GSC still has a way forward to being a top meta
We
contender.
we weren't bad into Bridgehead though.
It wasn't bad. I think it was definitely like who goes first.
Maybe
Really.
maybe with host, but talking to, for example, Henry LRM, who's
Hmm.
been playing a lot of Claw, uh, the Bridgehead matchup was actually pretty good because of all, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
because of transports and all the flamers and stuff. The Bridgehead
mhm.
had a problem.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Um, I could, that's always been like kind of a weak point for GS for hosts as well is dealing with guys in boxes. So I imagine that Bridgehead kind of had some of those same problems. But yeah, for host, it was definitely a lot more of a skill matchup. Who went first? Who's able to like sneak a primary here or there? And the games are always tight, but it always seemed like guard had like just a bit of an edge, especially into the rest of the meta. Like the Tempesta Scions with the command squads, like just put out so much more reliable damage than Neos were able to do. Now Neos had a bit more bulk, so they could absorb a bit more, and then we had our Return to Shadows, which helped the problem of recursion. However, like if you just drop down and kill everything, then recursion really isn't an issue. Um, So it's nice to see that matchup has gone away. I imagine that guard is going to be shifting to more of the mech assault and hammer of the emperor type lists. So Lehman Russes and like dudes and Taroxes running
which we
around.
kind of
Which
like.
yeah, I mean that means that you're able to 6-inch deep, like especially with hosts, you're able to 6-inch deep strike and move block, or charge them with neophyte bricks and just tie vehicles up and
Potentially one-shotting tanks.
exactly. And they really don't have amazing melee, so them getting out and punching our neophytes to death isn't really an issue. Uh, Another big change in the meta is orcs. Now, orcs, for a lot of armies, are like, whew, spooky, man. Very spooky. The new Mordaka detachment just gives their entire army sustain to. Um, they have assault in the Wa. I'm not sure if that's a change to the Wa or if that's a change to just that detachment. Do you know?
I believe it's a change of the detachment because of how, like, isn't the Y just extra strength attack and advance
And
the charge
advanced charge. That's what I thought. Uh,
with where? Let me actually check because I have it in front of me. Give me a second. Are orcs? There you go. Mordaka, which I think is misspelled because it should be Moardaka. To be
Mordaka.
yeah.
Oh yeah, it does give them the assault that
Yeah.
being in that detachment. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's fucking huge, man. Assault, so advance and charging and shooting orcs, which in and of itself is already spooky. However, they can also do that as many times as they want for a CP for a unit. So for one CP, they can take a unit and throw them into the wall. So that could be, a unit flash gets. That can be. I know a lot of people are talking about the grots with the character that can lead them, that make them -1 to wound, and gives them scout as well. Uh, and coming from playing knights, that was always orc's scariest unit. Like, not tank busters, not the dude with the shock attack. It's that unit is so hard to get through if you do not have weight of dice. The one nice thing is the character is very easy to precision out. I believe he doesn't have a invul. So, like, if you are playing knights or you're playing, or if for like Genestealer Cult, if you have like a patriarch or just any kind of like beefy character, abominant, you could always just try and precision out that guy, and then the grots become so much easier to deal with.
So, like, my biggest problem with this detachment, except uh, in addition to that stupid strat, which is probably one of the best strats they've ever printed, is who thought it was a good idea to put sustained hits 2 on orcs?
Because
Like,
essentially makes them hit on 3s, right? At that
y-
point. So they're normally
yeah,
hitting on
like
5s.
as Curious said on the stat check show, like every sustained hit's like basically +1 to hit. So
Yeah.
when it comes to, for example, Lutas, you triple their output.
Hmm.
Like, did someone at
Full with full
DW not?
rerolls. Yeah. When they're on objectives. Like Ludas are disgusting.
Also, I don't know if you have actually come up against this, but have you run into a mega knob squad? Have you run into a knob squad that rerolls wounds? Because that thing is terrifying.
So the army that I'm building right now is Votan. I've been kind of like on and off Votan for a while now in 10th edition, and I finally just like bit the bullet and bought some models. And as soon as that came out, I dropped everything that's like expensive out of there, except for the 2 forts that I still have in my list. Because I think 2 up armor is still, pretty good. Uh, but I, like I would not be bringing a 10-man unit of aberrants. I would not be bringing like a 10-man unit of pure strains. Just because right now, anything the orcs point their guns at, as long as it's like a Luda or a tank busta even, or flash gets in that detachment is dead. It's just instantly wiped off the floor. Because not only do they have the built-in sustain too, which is amazing, they could ignore cover for a stratagem. They get +1 AP for a stratagem. They could shoot back. So reactive shooting. So like if you shoot at them with like some hand flamers, they could just pick up hand flamers in their turn, which isn't really necessarily bad for us. But like if I
They
was a marine player, what I mean, like, and I shot them with,
the
I
thing
don't
is
know,
though, like their sustained hits too is only in their own shooting phase. So if they shoot back or Overwatch, they don't actually get to sustain too.
which is nice. Yeah, that's the
Which is
only that.
yeah,
That's why
which
I
means
think that. Go ahead.
yeah, I think our matchup into orcs aren't actually that terrible.
Hmm.
Even like when it comes to, for example, claw. Uh, like if I'm not sure. Like yeah, they're orcs. They're gonna punch you kind of hard, but we do basically the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with that.
The only problem we have is when they come in a lot of trucks. If you play, for example, host, because host usually doesn't have that much melee threat.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've actually switched back to bringing some MSU aberrants, is to like get that get them to force them out of their vehicles if they want to, deal with these guys lumbering up the field.
Because I
Because
think,
if what's
yeah,
that?
no, because I want to go back to, like, for example, claw, which is also one of the reasons I moved to claw, because claw has
Hmm.
like so much, like, okay, you have a ton of small activations and a ton of mortal wounds, and you actually have some combat with the acolytes.
Hmm.
You can probably crack the trucks and also kill the stuff inside
Oh
if you
yeah,
play it right. So I think the
yeah.
matchup isn't horrible. It's probably weighted towards the orcs because that's just so much damage.
Hmm.
But I think it's all right.
Yeah. I don't think that it will be particularly bad for Claw. You do have the advantage of being able to scout up the bikes and sticky objectives and kind of like bring the back, and then then you have all of your laser runners that can pop trucks like no problem. Of course, the laser runners will die in response to that. If they're going to be shooting them. I mean, you do have the reactive move, but that's really only going to matter if they try and punch you, which orcs do not need to do in this detachment. Um, but I do think that you can find a win out of Claw by just being efficient MSU. Um, I I think that the scary thing if I was playing Claw is that you generally don't start with too much in deep strike, and depending on the deployment and the map you're playing, you can potentially be alpha striked pretty hard. That being said, we do have the advantage of having some really good infiltrators with pure strains, and even kelomorphs or reductuses, um, that can kind of keep the orcs on kind of like on their side. Because it's what it seems that to me is that they want to if they want to alpha strike, um, that they're going to want to take advantage of like scout moves, um, and being able to just kind of run up the board. So you do have like at least a turn if you bring some infiltrators to kind of keep them at bay. So I definitely think that for overall for GSC, it's not a bad matchup. I think for hosts is actually fine as long as you have ways of either a cracking trucks early or forcing them to get out of their trucks early. Um, because once the orcs are on the table and they're disembarked, then I mean it's what neophytes do best, right? Like they love shooting orcs. They love shooting orcs that are on the table. Like infantry on the table. Um like you could clean up a unit of flash gits or of tank buses or of ludas or whatever, like with a single neophyte unit, like with a Benefactus or Primus leading them, like without any issue, even through the wall. Um, Traditionally, the only thing that's been kind of obnoxious to get through has been like mega knobs with the feel no pain as well as the invul. Uh, because they believe the Mega Knobs also have a 2-up armor, I want to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah, they have a 2-up armor. So even through like the +1, they're saving on 3, or the +1 from a Ridge Runner, they're saving on 3s with all of your shotguns um and so that's always been in hosts. Like shotguns have become super relevant, um especially like if you're running bennies, because you want that because getting the lethal from those. So I think that if they are running like more DACA, or they're running the tactical, which I imagine that pretty much everyone is who has been running tactical is just going to switch to more DACA. um I think it is fine. I have heard of people like talking about bringing like a couple, like maybe one or two Mega Knob units, just because you can flex them into the wall whenever you want, so they can get that feel no pain. Um, but that could always be just a unit that you ignore, and you kind of focus on their shooting. Um, Now the rest of the field, the rest of the meta is I don't know. Like if I were playing Marines right now and I saw that orc today, I'm like I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do.
Well,
Because
the Ultramarine Gladius vehicle spam will just get blown off the table.
yeah, like I was listening to Art of War, and they were talking about like I guess John uh brought a Death Watch, like a very hyper efficient Death Watch list, and Jack brought a more DACA list, and John, who's been playing like Marines since Kingdom Come, uh, just got annihilated against an army that's only been out for a few days. So it's definitely spooky. I do think that if for our listeners who play teams, um, that orcs and elves, which we will talk about next, beings who are going to be so prevalent in the meta, that GSC is a fantastic pick to bring in. Because I mean, not only are GSC just all around great at scoring and primary denial, and even in bad matchups keeping it relatively close, um they are fantastic. I think they're good into orcs. I don't think that they're fantastic, but I do think you can get a solid 12 into more DACA. However, with Yanari taking absolutely zero nerfs, um, I think that just really makes it important to be bringing Genestealer Cult, because you know surprise, surprise, GSC are still good at killing elves.
So I've been playing elves a little bit in the Vibe Check League,
Hmm.
and also in some other TTS tournaments. And like when you get into a matchup the elves like, the opponent it feels so oppressive for the opponent. Like I played elves into a Dark Ages Gladius list, and he literally couldn't interact with me because of the fight first.
Hmm.
Like he charged the lion into some scorpions and had to get, like, he couldn't do that without getting heroic by an incupi brick,
Hmm.
and the lion just died.
Yeah.
Then he fought on death and killed the Visarch, and that was the only thing he killed. Swinging back into the incubi, which is probably not how it's supposed to go. But yeah, um,
Oh yeah.
but like he could, and then like I put some banshees next to another unit of scorpions, and his like inner circle companions just stood there, like he had like a free man of inner circle looking at my scorpions with a couple of banshees behind, and then he was like, how am I supposed to do this? But yeah,
It's
but then I played into guard,
mhm.
bridgehead, and got mortared for 5 rounds.
And yeah.
Or if I've heard the CK is a really bad matchup for the elves, Admech is like a guaranteed 0-20 for the elves. I've heard
Hmm.
from one of the
Yeah,
better Admech
just
players in Sweden, and GC loves playing elves. So
loves them.
I like elves are probably good, but I'm not sure they're actually top.
I think that whenever we look at stats, especially if we look at like um, peop GT wins, you also have to consider like the pilots behind that. El Elves, Marines, CSM are all like armies that a lot of top level players like have access to. Like either A, they own the army, or B, they're in a group where they can just borrow hammer like a competitive list. So while like it while their mechanics maybe not being, super broken, it's the fact that the person behind the army is going to be s- good enough of a player to do well with them, and to make them seem that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do
So
feel like I think elves most certainly have a place in like maybe an 8 man. In a 5 man team, I'm not completely sure though. But I don't know. I haven't
I
looked into it
it's
after this. But
probably like I probably wouldn't, if I was a team captain, I probably wouldn't like flex someone into elves who, like, if I didn't have an elf player, I probably
yeah,
wouldn't like force someone into it. Just because like while Yanari does like have a lot of bullshit, they are also you got to know how to use that. So I definitely think that like you can run into like a lot of bad elf players.
yeah,
Or no, I shouldn't say bad, but like players who maybe aren't super experienced with that kind of play style. But I don't, like, me being the GSC player that I am, and I'm, while I think I'm decent at the army, I definitely I'm not a top GSC player. I don't see a world where I lose a game into elves with, especially with host. Like host is I would not even know where to begin on how to play against host as elves. Like the Yanari rule, doing the movement uh at the end of the shooting phase. Like the fact that it's at the end of the shooting phase just is it has no relevance against Genestealer Cult, because that means that like the problem with Phantasm was always that you had to position all of your units in such a way that like you can shoot at multiple things in case they phantasmed. Like, you wouldn't want to drop a neophyte squad and it not have anything to shoot. But you really don't have to worry about that because whatever you shoot, you will kill. And um, and by the time you're done shooting, like, sure, they can do their movement shenanigans, but where are they gonna go? Like, they're still T3 single wound bodies, so running closer to the neophytes isn't actually that great of a choice. Even with the fight first, because, like, especially if there's a Primus in there, like the Primus and whatever neophytes are remaining, like, will probably still pick up like a 5-man of whatever Howling Banshees, like whatever you got, because they're still gonna have their sustained. If they have CP left over, you can still crit on 5s. And if it's and the Primus himself is still like good enough melee that he is very spooky for
Another
an elf player to
thing,
deal with.
another thing that goes in our favor is Ridge Runners are basically an elf's worst nightmare because they're
Hmm.
strength 6 mortars.
Hmm. Like, they're actually relevant as damage. Not
Also,
just applying our +1 for
in the
AP.
claw list I'm playing, which I shamelessly stole from Henry, there's also triple saboteur. So you want to eat you want to eat 5 mortars? Go for it.
like like on a 5 up, on a 5, like, if as long as you like roll your 2 up, if you roll a 5, your elf unit just dies. If you
Also,
roll a 3, you're left with a single model, like the sergeant on 1 wound, who's gonna do nothing. Like, saboteurs just fuck
also,
elves so hard.
also, also the saboteur having the remote explosives for which is a strength 5 mortar
Mhm.
that can get ignore cover with
Mhm.
the if he runs survey auger. Yeah, they're also
Yeah.
not gonna have a good time.
No. No, I think that while the rest of the field, like, being like, "Oh my god, like, I can't believe that they didn't change Yanari," I think that's almost like a shadow buff for GSC, because that means that a ton of people are still going to be playing elves, because I'm sure that when the codex dropped, a lot of people went out and bought models, and they still want to play with their models and their new codex, and they have a detachment that was untouched, that elves are still going to be huge in the meta, which means that GSC have tons of bodies to feast on and to climb. And not just for teams, like, for singles as well. Like, I think it's fine. Um like I said, I think orcs are fine. Um I would
I
I'm
think
not a
we have to.
huge fan.
I think we have to test the orcs, but it looks on paper that it should be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, their vehicles are relatively easy to kill, even the kill rigs. Um,
They're not gonna
they're
run a kill rig. They're
yeah,
gonna roll. There's gonna be trucks, and you
six
know it.
truck, six
Uh,
trucks, which trucks are stupid easy to kill.
I think it's like
Uh,
probably like 4 to 6 trucks.
yeah.
Not like I mostly play on WTC, and I'm not sure how you maneuver 6 trucks on WTC, but on more open board, yeah, maybe.
Hmm. So, yeah, while we gotta wait for some actual data, like, I don't really see anything coming out of the data slate that necessarily spooks me at all. I mean, playing host and sisters, like, was never really an issue. Um, the the only thing that would be kind of scary is if Marines, like, especially Blood Angels, like, shifted back to, like, playing Land Raider, the Land Raiders with Flamers, that was the Land Raider Redeemer,
Yeah,
and Ball Preds, because that was always like super obnoxious to play into. But with them losing their bloodless angel build,
which didn't really matter into us anyway.
no, it,
To be
it didn't.
fair,
I think with them losing their bloodless angel build, either A, there'll be a little bit of faction abandonment, or B, they'll all switch to angelic inheritors, which is a fine matchup for us.
or all the Marines players are just gonna play Death Watch or Ultramarines because Ultramarines barely just took a flick on the nose and that's it.
Exactly, which I think Ultramarines are it's a fine matchup.
But I
It's
do think Ultramarines have a problem with the orcs though, so that might be a thing.
definitely, definitely. So it'll be definitely interesting to see where we kind of like end within the overall meta.
I
Speaking
think
about
we're also okay into knights. I think.
into which one? Knights? Yeah.
Yeah, both knights. Like I played
W-
host into a chaos knight, and turn two I dropped and like put a couple of knights on like low wounds, and I was like, okay, the game is probably over. The turn afterwards, I killed 6 war dogs in one turn. So
yeah. No, I definitely think knights are fine. The only time that I would say I've had problems with knights is if I like whenever I was playing host is I did go to an RTT or I dropped a game against knights, but it was um when I was bringing some trucks in to hold or rock grinders, excuse me, to hold 5-man aberrants. If those points were just put into more neophytes, um, and like a reductus saboteur or two, which are a fantastic knight uh like knight tech piece, because like they're knights, they're going to come forward, so you're going to get your D3+3 mortals, you're going to get your free grenade, um and then on top of like just all of the rest of the shooting from the neophytes, then I think that game would have gone a bit differently. But like Imperial Knights get absolute, especially if they bring big knights, they get absolutely slaughtered. um she is like host loves saying like, you have one important thing, I will kill that one important thing. We have so many ways of making that happen, like a neophyte squad, like let's say the Primus neophyte squad with chink in their armor. You give him crit on 5s, and then um if you also want to spend +1 to wound for like him and a unit of Flacos, like I've had those uh take a full health lancer, which is 25 wounds, through the field no pain to 0. Like just absolutely nuke it off the board, and it was even like that great of rolling.
Bioscientific is also pretty okay in the knights with +1 to win against vehicles, and also having
Mhm,
the last hammer on the abominant.
exactly. Yeah. No, I think overall we're doing great. And so we'll go ahead and look at some stats. Now, obviously these stats are not going to be including the current data slate, but I think it's cool to kind of just check out like how we've been doing overall. So we'll use stat check because we love them and they're very reliable. And I like to always like go back a couple of like sub patches. So we'll be looking at data from Pariah 1.05 to Pariah 1.07, which includes Grotmus and Codex Astra Militarum, Grotmus and Codex Eldari, and then their most recent one. And right now, um, with all three of those, we're sitting at a 53% win rate, a 1.24 over rep, a 15% 4-0 start, which is the highest in the game. No event wins, and then a 2% player population. So no event wins, I think, is not surprising. I think that's something that GSC and this is I've experienced this over my chunk of time playing them. You know, I've taken them to quite a bit of tournaments by this point. You can realistically get through day one of a GT with GSC and run into 3 people who have never seen GSC. Like, even at this point, 10th edition, like, through their highs and their lows and, you know, where they were at the beginning of the edition and where they were, like, towards the resurgence with Claw and Brood Surge, now Host, you can easily get through day one and play against people who have never seen it, and maybe not even run into someone until, like, if you're playing just like a basic GT, until like game 4 or game 5, which kind of makes sense that their stats reflect that, um, with such a great 4-0 start. But I think what that does mean is that you can get through the mid tables relatively unscathed, and then for that last game or two, it's just going to come down to outskilling your opponent. Like, I think that the days of there being like clear meta counters for GSC are essentially over.
Well, like
Um,
our worst matchup by far used to be Death Guard, I think.
exactly. Yeah, Death Guard was always terrible, right? But that was in the index, where they can get, because remember in the index we had our +1 to hit, +1 AP stratagem.
It was also afterwards, like running Outlander Claw into a Death Guard list was not fun.
Yeah, if you're going melee, like if you're going Brood Surge, like, but specifically playing Host into Death Guard, I remember it was a totally different game because primed and readied got through that -1, -1 to hit, like all those stacking -1s to hit. Um, because you'll just hit on 5s, which, yes, that does mean that your grenade launchers and your heavy stubbers, um, and your shotguns would all be hitting a little bit worse. But your seismics, your mining lasers, like your big money makers are hitting on their base, and they're sustained and lethaling on 5s. So even with the -1 to hit, you're still essentially hitting on 4s. I would actually have to do the math what sustained and lethal like equal out to. I imagine it really depends on like the quality of target that you're shooting, but taking Host into Death Guard like feels like a fine matchup. Like, your primed and ready target has to be like important. You know, it can't you can't be like just tossing that around. And you know, you do have the ability to get overwatched by some of those plague marine bricks, you know, that take like the 3 flamers or whatever. So that was always kind of difficult. Uh, but it did not feel like how it was in the index, where like your your
Your
bomb
bomb
back
were completely
did nothing.
useless. Yeah.
Exactly. Like your most important units just got fucking neutered even through like Primus rerolls. Um but going back to the stats, you'll be happy to know that Claw does have the highest win rate, but there's only 3 players. The second highest win rate is Final Day with 10, then Host with 14, Brood Surge with 22 at 51, Ascension Day. Ascension Day.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? Someone played the old
Our,
index?
someone's playing our podcast.
I am.
Uh,
And then the
and
poor guy playing Brood
the
Brothers.
one guy trying to make Brood Brothers work. Good on you for that.
Thank you
No,
for holding our wind rate down so we don't get more nerfs. I love you. Keep at
no
it.
no Xenocreed here, which yeah, I mean, we can maybe talk about Xenocreed a little bit, but great,
But yeah,
just
the thing
great
is though,
overall win.
Brood Brothers might have some use now with the new Guard Codex. I haven't looked at it though.
That yeah, I mean, Brood Brothers would always be a thing of if there is a good data sheet, like for me, if I'm making a brood, if I was like gun to head, have to make a Brood Brothers list, it'd be like, okay, what does GSC have that Guard does it in its like good melee? And so it would be, what can I take from Guard that can work, that like whose data sheet carries it far enough that it doesn't need orders, um, and it can like be slotted in well with GSC melee. I haven't found that yet. Like I've made lists. I've made lists for, for every detachment. I've played every detachment except for Brood Brothers. Um, but like every list, like none of the lists I've made have sparked enough joy to like, oh, I'll actually take 3 hours and throw this on the table. Um, Xenocreed is definitely one which I I can see Xenocreed doing well. It it just the build is there, I'm sure. Well, I mean, we at the end of the day, we are a low play rate army. Like even at the top, when GSC is just, killing and taking names, like I never saw us go above 3% overall meta representation. Never. Like
Wouldn't you?
that was the
Yeah.
absolute highest that ever see it went. And and so I think that because of that, there are just going to be some detachments that are not being tested.
Wouldn't Xenocrate be okay into elves? Just the amount of bodies?
I think so. I think So the Xenocreed list that I made was one that like tried to utilize the icon ward 5-up feel no pain
Just the
on
jail list?
on Neophyte. Yeah, a jail like OC list. And it was fine. It just was never there. Your killing power is ass. Like it's nothing. Um so then the Xenocreed list that I would say is more popular is the Acolytes. Is Acolyte spam and meta spam. But even then, like the Acolytes, while being a little bit tougher, being T4, and Metamorphs, having a 4-up feel no pain versus the 5-up with the Icon Ward, it was just never like enough to really be able to punch through. So, I invite our listeners, if they can figure something out with if someone can go 4-1 with Xenocreed, I'm
Or
dragging you
Brood
onto the
Brothers?
show. Or Brood Brothers, then you're definitely being dragged on the show. But like, I I only have so much time in my day to be able to play games. So that's why like when I did my testing with Xenocreed and it wasn't giving me the results I wanted, I kind of like just went back to host. Uh, but I definitely can see that there is something there. I'm sure it's just like it's all about like bringing the right amount of units and having those tech pieces be where they need to be. But Final Day is doing good.
Yeah. I haven't really
Did you
looked at Final Day too much.
So that team tournament I went to, I was supposed to be playing Final Day. Uh, like in on my painting desk next to me is 40 gargoyles. Is a I got like a Death Leaper. I got all that stuff like sitting here right next to me. Um, but the testing for it was not great. So the list that I was building was essentially Gargoyle Jail, with Ridge Runner shooting to back it up, and some aberrant melee. Um, it it just all died a little too quickly. Was the problem. Um, Gargoyles, I mean, are great, but they are expensive. Um, they are one of those units that can be absolutely just picked up in Overwatch, even by something that really has no reason to be doing Overwatch. Like, and it's very, very, very CP hungry. Um, oh, so I was doing my testing into one of my teammates. I played into Orcs, I played into Marines, and I played into Tau. The Tau game I won, but the Orcs and the Marines games I both lost. They weren't bad losses, but I did lose. Um, and it was just because everything died too quickly. Like I would expose a unit of Ridge Runners to like shoot at something important. It would probably kill it, but then they would get picked up. It's like, okay, well, there goes two of my Ridge Runners. And I brought five. So 2x2 laser and then one mortar. Um, and then, the second time they would go, they'd pick up something relatively important, but then they would die. And the gargoyles are getting picked up by fucking whatever, right? Like you have a bolter on a rhino, cool, that's three gargoyles dead. You got some intercessors that are just standing around, they pick up five. Now that's not to say that like Final Day isn't good. Like obviously Nick Nanavati did pretty well with them at LVO. I think he went X and 1. Um, and they have a good win rate right now. They are a big part of the overrep. Um, and so you can do well with Final Day, and I can I can still see them fine in teams. I don't know the conclusion I came to is in an 8-man, yes, but in a 5-man, like for me, they're just not that reliable. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Final Day?
I've run around a little bit with Final Day, like not much. Like they took a random list and put it on the table against Nids, I think it was,
Hmm.
and I was massively whelmed.
Yeah.
Well, I think Final Day is probably a very good attachment, and I just haven't put enough time into it. I know a guy who does think it's the best UC detachment.
Hmm.
Um, like having Ridge Runners hit on twos, having Rock Grinders with lasers hitting on threes, having a ton of good lone up, like everything is there, and Gargoyles being absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Like I think everything is there. It's just like I probably haven't put enough time into it.
And I think there's something to be said, and this is more of a 40K, problem than just a Genestealer problem, is that some your play style is really what's going to ultimately dictate how well you do with an army. Like I can take the most broken like orc list and maybe not do that well with them. Whereas I could take I remember when knights were in the doldrums and when DGSC was in the doldrums, like I was doing fine with host. I was doing fine with triple big knight. Um like I took I like last year I took Chaos Knights to a GT and I brought a big knight and did fine. Like even though everyone's saying that it's you only take dogs, which for most people that's how they find success with the army. Um, but the play style, what I like to do, being a very hyper kind of aggressive player, um, I I just was not doing well with Final Day. And I think Final Day, and I think that's because Final Day is one of those detachments that want to play 5 games of Warhammer. Uh, As a host player, I want to play 3 games of Warhammer or 3 rounds of Warhammer. I want to play 3 rounds. We mop out the rest, I mean? Like the rounds 4 and 5 is just me at like either standing on things, collecting points, and like killing onesie twosie things here and there, or like going for like a secret mission and setting up my secret mission. Um, but I like having 2 rounds of just absolute fucking violence.
Yeah.
And some people don't want to play like that. Some people want to play the 5 games or the 5 rounds of Warhammer, and they have more success from that. They're like, I'm looking for my turn 4. Everything come out. I jail everything up. I deny all primary, and then I know that turn 4 and 5 they're gonna have no primary. Or I take little wins here, little wins there. I'll get 5 point advantage on turn 2, 5 points turn 3. You know what I mean? And it's like that stacking kind of point advantage over those 5 rounds are what they're looking to do. So I could definitely see how, if that's the kind of player that you are, you're much more of, I don't want to say passive, but you're much more of like a let the game kind of play itself out player. You could do well with Final Day.
I think Final Day is an attachment you could probably find success with. I just haven't put time into it, and I also don't own any Tyranid models. So
Yeah, that's another part. Luckily for me, I was able to like borrow a bit of Tyranids, and then I just printed a shit ton of gargoyles, which was nice. But yeah, if you're not a printer kind of guy, and maybe you don't have like the models to borrow, yeah, getting into especially that many gargoyles is kind of obnoxious. Um, but overall, how are you feeling about GSC?
I think we're in a good place.
Hmm.
Like, we're probably in a really good place.
Yeah, I think so as
Like,
well.
both for teams and singles.
Yeah,
Maybe a little bit more in teams, but
I think we
yeah.
have a I think we have a great spot in teams. I think we really do. Like for this team tournament that I got coming up in July, and then fingers crossed, I'm hoping that I'll be one of the players on the Air Force team for Champs Cup uh, in September, I want to say. Which I'm super excited for that because a bunch of teams come from all over the world for that, so that'll be exciting. That'll be probably the closest thing to a WTC esque thing that I do. Um, I'm like, I know the right answers to play GSC, but I also have these Votan that are like I just bought that are staring at me in the face. But I mean, I'll probably be playing GSC. They're
Wotan is
just
pretty good, even with their little nerf.
they're I know people have been saying like it's a nerve specifically talking about like your CP generation on your grudge targets, but there's a lot of debate on the wording of that. Again, GW released a rule that is not clear that we now all have to like interpret, and super fun. No, I think Votan are fine. I think Votan also have a really good game into elves. I think that they are actually probably fine into orcs. Just because we do the same thing that they do, which is pop out transports and shoot shit. Um, they shoot a little bit harder. We have a little bit better quality shooting. So, it that remains to be seen. I'm sure that's like a 10-10 matchup. But GSC, I think, absolutely slaughter elves. Um,
Yeah,
Host
it's not even
is
funny.
it's not like I have knock on wood, knocking on my desk right now. I have never lost a game of Tails playing GSC, not one, and I've probably played more than 40 games against elves at this
I
point
have
in all 10th
lost.
edition.
I have lost game into elves. There was a quarterfinal in a vibe check league back when the Brave Knight was a thing, where it
Was
could
that old Dev Wounds?
old Dev Wounds and Overwatch on the Brave Knight, where it stood in the
Oh
middle of the board and
yeah,
Overwatch an
yeah,
entire 20-man neophyte to death.
yeah. I mean, that happens. I mean, that's why it's like at the beginning of the edition, we always like talked about how like GSC, uh, like was the counter to elves. They weren't the counter to elves. They were the only thing that elves would be like, oh, I could lose against this.
It
Like
was very close. It was a
I
very
could
close game.
technically lose against this.
If he
Everyone
did,
else, like, it doesn't matter, but I
if
could
he didn't
technically.
wipe, if he didn't wipe that squad, I would probably have won by like a point.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. But no, I think GSC are in a great place, like as well. Like our stats indicate that we're doing fine. Um, we took a 15
I
point
I
nerf
do
on 20
wish
man.
I do wish they would give Root Brothers a little bit more oomph. Just something more in
Yeah,
the attachment rule or something. Just to like, because right now you're like, I'm taking 1,000 points of guard, I'm taking 1,000 points of Genestealers, I'm not doing anything like interesting. I'm just half and half of an army. Why not just take an entire part of an army instead and get the rules?
exactly, exactly. Like
So
if they had,
I think the
if they had,
detachment is flawed in
hmm
itself.
yeah. I mean, if they could give them even like two orders, like either like give them like move, 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 or and like the plus one to hit one. I think if they just gave them those two orders and be like, these are the two orders you get to use, I think someone could make a very good Brood Brothers list. But
Like
the fact
look
that
at
we
Shadow
have,
Legion. That's a good soup detachment. Or
oh
finally.
yeah, oh yeah, exactly. Like there is ways to make soup detachments good. Final Day is a great detachment. Like in terms of rules, it is a great detachment. Just your entire GSC like half gets +1 to hit. Um, is in and of itself good. We have true uppy downy. We don't have to get shot. Oh, speaking about that, little bit of a side tangent. Um, so I went to a GT a few months ago. I think in January. I didn't do really good. I went 2-3, which is what started my sabbatical from GSC. I should have felt bad because the guy who won LVO was also there, and he went 2-2 because I think he dropped his last game. Um, and then he went off to win LVO. So I shouldn't have felt bad. Maybe it was just a bad bad day for everyone. But that's what kind of made me be like, okay, I'm gonna take a break. What was I saying? But it was then that I found out, and I'm just gonna double check it just to make sure. But Return to the Shadows you can do in melee. I did not know. Yep, right there. Your opponent's shooting phase just after one GSC unit, infantry unit could be removed and placed into strategic reserves. I had never known that. You know how many games against like Monster Mash or Chaos Knights or all these other games I would have won if I would have known that?
Wait, you didn't
I
know about it?
no.
Oh my
I
god.
I have been playing this entire time, what, like a year, thinking, or not quite a year, but almost a year, not quite, or not knowing that I could do Return of the Shadows in Melee. My mind was fucking blown. I was like, oh,
I'm sorry, but this is such a typical game moment. It's insane.
it is like it's almost as if like I had like there's a whole other weapon that I had not been firing the entire time. It's like, oh, Gabe, do you know you also have like 2 las cannons? Like, oh, I do. It fucking blew my mind because like my opponent was like, my opponent had played against Host once before, and like I did pick him up, and he's like, oh, I thought you would have picked him up. And I'm like, no, they're engagement range. He's like, maybe that guy cheated or something. The last guy I played, but he said that you don't need to be. You could do an engagement range. And I was like, pretty sure you can, because like every other stratagem like that I know of, like some like maybe one other one says like you can't be in melee. And I looked up, and it's like, nope, sure enough. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ.
I would have loved to see your face at that moment.
Oh my god. I mean, it was funny is I had just dropped the game to Legion of Excess. And if I would have been able to pick up my neophytes, I would have won. The Legion of Excess game was fucking absolutely stupid. Their make everyone take a battle shock. I'm so happy that they got dumpster, dude. The make everyone take a battle shock stratagem was busted. I had 2 greater demons down to 1 wound. And because of the battle shock and their natural battle shock, and then the one that's able to like heal
Kill something.
whenever they kill something, yeah, they were just able to like get back to like half, and then like by the time the game was over, they were like above half from one fucking wound. That was a game. I went to my hotel and had a few beers after that. I was like, I can't believe this. But anyway, yeah. So if you guys didn't know, you can Return to the Shadows while in melee. I wish I would have known that at Nova. That would have made me very happy, especially. Anyway, well, Elias, I'm glad that we got another episode. It's fun. It's been a while. Uh, any parting shots? Any final thoughts?
Is this where I do plugs or?
Yeah. Plug away, my friend.
All right, so I'm one of the moderators of the Swedish 40K community, discord.gg/Vaisla. We have probably heard of us because we've been around a bit lately. We did, for example, the sheets with all the lists for VCW and Pyra Cup, and we're also organizing a massive team tournament in Sweden this June. And you can go onto our website, vaisla.gg, and find some more information there, or just come into our Discord and say hi, mostly in Swedish, but there's a lot of international people in there too.
I will also plug Vaisla because they Elias shared one of our videos in there, and they all seem to love it. And so big Vaisla fan, big Sweden fan, big fan. Do recommend. Friends of the show. Confirmed. Cool. And then like I said to all of our listeners, if you're within the the Sweden scene, if you have any kind of info for this theft, please feel free to reach out to us. That would be huge if we could recover some of those models back. Cool. Thanks guys for listening. I appreciate all of your support. I appreciate everyone who donates to the Discord every month. That it keeps me from having to shell out my own money to keep the podcast up and going. So I really appreciate that. Sorry for not doing anything for a while. Your boy needed a break. But I am hoping to do some more stuff in the future. And hopefully provide some more GSC content in the future. Definitely, I'm gonna have some more guest episodes on with other folks, more Elias as well, Primus Elias. So, uh, thanks, and we'll see you guys later.
See ya.
I just left my own call. I'm an idiot.